What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop, and with each passing day we are getting ever closer to Halloween, and with that being said, I think it's time for another spoopy themed video. As you all know, we cover Pokemon on this here YouTube channel, and Pokemon is a very happy-go-lucky entertainment franchise. It's obviously intended for children, with also an appeal for adults, so overall it's just a very family-friendly sort of thing. With that being said, even though Pokemon's focus is on family-friendly content, that doesn't mean that there haven't been some dark things to happen to the franchise over the years, because there have been some dark things that have happened not only to Pokemon over the years, but also things that Pokemon themselves have included in their games intentionally, which just really makes for the perfect topic of discussion as we approach the spookiest day of the year. So obviously you guys know where I'm going with this. Today we are going to be looking at the dark side of Pokemon. Today's video is all about highlighting the more spooky, morbid, and dark things that the franchise has to offer, and even though I'm not going to be covering every dark thing that Pokemon has to offer in this video, we are going to highlight 5 things in particular that you might not really be aware of or you might not think of right off the bat, so it's going to be very spooky, yet some of the more less obvious things in general. With all that being said though, why don't we go ahead and just prepare to get spooked. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be talking about here is also the only thing on this list that Pokemon themselves did not intentionally include into their games, and instead was the result of something that happened mistakenly by the Pokemon franchise that resulted in a very dark sequence of events. If you guys haven't guessed it by now, I am talking about the aftermath of the premiere of the anime episode Electric Soldier Porygon. Now, this dark tale from Pokemon's past is pretty well known by the majority of the Pokemon fanbase, thanks to the internet, but we are going to summarize it here anyway for the sake of spookiness, and I'm also going to give you some specific details that you might have not been aware of earlier. So basically, the story goes that after the premiere of the anime episode Electric Soldier Porygon in Japan, hundreds of children experienced epileptic seizures as a result of watching this episode due to the bright flashing lights that featured towards the end of the episode as a result of an explosion. As a result of the seizures caused by this event, 685 people that viewed the episode were taken to the hospital, and 2 of them remained hospitalized for more than 2 weeks. Additionally, members of the Japanese police department in the area were ordered to question the anime's producers about how they made the show and their production process. On top of that, video retailers all over Japan removed the Pokemon anime from their rental shelves, and Nintendo's stock value fell almost 5% overnight as a result of the controversy. Naturally, as I'm sure you can expect, this caused an unprecedented amount of damage on the Japanese public, even if it was unintentional, especially coming from a kids' TV show. And this resulted in the Pokemon anime being completely taken off the air for an entire 4 months. And even after it came back, there was still a little bit of morbid aftermath, even though most people were happy to see Pokemon back on the air. This is because the anime returned after that 4-month hiatus with the special episode Pikachu's Goodbye. And of course, this is the very emotional episode where Ash decides to release Pikachu, even though Pikachu comes back at the end of the episode, and this was likely a very direct result of this scenario. It's more than likely that the producers wrote this episode as a sign of what could have been had Pokemon been taken completely off the air, or as some people theorize, had Pikachu been forced to be taken out of the franchise, since it was really the one who caused the explosion that caused all the seizures and not Porygon, because Porygon, the Pokemon who featured in this episode, has been all but removed completely for the anime, almost never appearing at all ever since the fateful day that this episode premiered. Moving on, we've got a theory, while not necessarily confirmed, is very convincing and paints a very dark picture at what could have possibly happened to Pokemon if they decided to go a different direction with their games. Now, this is not your average creepypasta type of theory, because this actually has some significant weight to it. If you paid attention to the channel over the past couple months, you might have seen me cover a theory about how the unknown could have originally been intended to be based on atomic bomb victims. Now, because I recently covered this theory in full in a video of my own, I'm not going to cover the entire theory here, so I highly recommend you check that video out by clicking the iCard at the top right corner of the screen. However, with that being said, I am going to summarize it here for the sake of this video. So the theory goes is that in the release of the Gold and Silver beta demo that was leaked earlier this year, there is some information about the unknown and about the Ruins of Alph in particular that paint a very surprising, convincing, and dark picture that yes, indeed, the unknown were originally intended to be based on victims of the atomic bomb in World War II. This is because, among other things, the Johto region that featured in this beta demo encompassed the entirety of Japan instead of just the Kansai region that we got in the final. And as a result of this, the Ruins of Alph in the beta demo were placed over an area that correlates in Japan to one of the cities that was bombed by an atomic bomb in World War II. Also in the Ruins of Alph themselves are hieroglyph-like markings on the walls that weren't featured in the final games that depict people being affected by some sort of disaster, and the unknown that rest on the walls of the Ruins of Alph themselves resembled the shadows that were burned into walls and the ground of people after the dropping of the atomic bombs. There's also the mysterious unknown transmission that can be heard in the Ruins of Alph that resembles that of a Geiger counter, which is used to measure radioactive activity in an area, and all of this coming together paints a very dark picture that could have been the actual reality had Game Freak gone in this way, that says that the unknown were actually based on the victims of the atomic bomb. Moving on, we are now going to be highlighting one of the creepiest Pokemon, if not the creepiest Pokemon of all time, Hypno. Hypno is a Pokemon that doesn't really seem like much at face value, but when you start looking further into it and start getting into the specifics of this Pokemon, it starts to paint a very grim picture as to what this Pokemon is capable of. In Hypno's various dex entries, it specifies an event where a Hypno once kidnapped a child, and this sparked a wave of creepypastas which ultimately led to the ever-popular creepypasta song, Hypno's Lullaby. However, it does not stop with the fan creations because Game Freak and the Pokemon Company themselves have actually relished in this little detail about Hypno and have used it to their advantage in several side quests in several of their titles. The first one was in Fire Red and Leaf Green, where we see in the post-game on the Sevi Islands a girl literally being chased by a Hypno in the forest, and your goal of this side quest is to basically save the girl from this Hypno. Now, this is a very blunt and to-the-point type of side quest that I'm very surprised Game Freak even included in their games at all, because just shortly after including a Pokedex entry about a Hypno kidnapping a Pokemon, we have an actual side quest where we see a Hypno attempting to kidnap a Pokemon, and for a game that's targeted primarily towards kids, that's pretty dark. There is also a side quest in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon that once again I have done a theory about, so be sure to check that out with the iCard above, but this side quest features a little girl who is actually haunting the trainer school, and of course, since we're dealing with a little girl, Hypno is also a major part of this side quest, being one of the Pokemon that is basically haunting the school. Now, nothing is really implied between Hypno and the little girl in this side quest specifically, because of course that's where the theory comes in, but just the fact that almost every time we have some sort of side quest involving a little girl or a little child, it seems that Hypno decides to pop up is a very, very, very creepy thing to have just in general, let alone in a children's game. Next up is one of the obligatory spooky areas that is included in most Pokemon games, and it's also one of the ones that I believe is the most underrated, and that would be the Strange House. Now, we've seen areas in Pokemon games before that are intentionally scary, and we've even seen areas that feature Pokemon death. However, the thing that the Strange House does that I believe takes it to the next level is feature the death of a person, and not only a person, a little girl, and not only a little girl that died, but a little girl that was murdered. While in the Strange House, you will come across the ghost of a little girl who is actively haunting the house, and as you explore the house more and more, you will find out a little bit about her backstory, and basically she alludes to the fact that she was murdered by none other than the mythical Pokemon Darkrai. The little girl, being of course dead, talks about how she was in the middle of an everlasting dark dream, which is the signature description of Darkrai, since Darkrai gives unending nightmares. She eventually leads you to the Lunar Wing, which is the signature item of Darkrai's counterpart Cresselia, and basically this was intended to relieve the girl of her dreams, but obviously that wasn't able to happen. So not only are we dealing with a dead child here, we're dealing with a dead child that was murdered. And not only are we dealing with a dead child that was murdered, we're dealing with a dead child that was murdered by a Pokemon. And for Pokemon, I think that's about as dark as it can get. Like I've said, we have seen spooky things in Pokemon before, but featuring a dead child in a game that is intended for children that was murdered by the namesake of the game itself is probably about as dark as Pokemon has ever gotten, in my opinion. And last but not least, we have a very dark side of the Pokemon world that comes from an area you might not expect, at least kind of. The Pokédex is known for specifying some weird and crazy things about Pokemon in particular, and of course it's also home to some very dark Pokédex entries. However, what you might not be expecting is that the darkest Pokédex entries we have ever seen by far come from Mega Pokemon of all things. Specific Pokédex entries for Mega Pokemon were first introduced in Generation 7, and there are 5 in particular that I want to share with you guys today. First up is Mega Houndoom, and according to the Pokédex, Mega Houndoom's red claws and the tips of its tail are melting from high internal temperatures that are painful to Houndoom itself. Moving on to Mega Gyarados, the Pokédex says that Mega Evolution also affects its brain, leaving no other function except its destructive instinct to burn everything to cinders. Looking at Aerodactyl, when it Mega Evolves, it becomes more vicious than ever before. Some say that's because its excess of power is causing it pain. Taking a look at Tyranitar, due to the colossal power poured into it, this Pokemon's back split right open. Its destructive instincts are the only thing keeping it moving. And finally, looking at Garchomp, its arms and wings melted into something like scythes. Mad with rage, it rampages on and on. These Pokédex entries in particular reveal a very, very dark side to Mega Evolution. Basically, what they tell us is that the power and energy that is given to these Pokemon through Mega Evolution is simply too much for their bodies, and even though it makes them way more powerful, it is literally destroying them from the inside, causing their bodies to literally split open and melt from the inside. And if that is not disturbing, I don't know what is. Obviously, since Mega Evolution was only introduced in Generation 6, we still don't know much about it, but these Dex entries that were introduced in Gen 7 paint a very, very grim picture about what Mega Evolution is like, to the point where I don't even really want to Mega Evolve my Pokemon. However, with that being said, it'll be very interesting to see if we ever learn anything else about Mega Evolution specifically, and whether or not these very dark Dex entries have anything to do with the backstory and the actual process of Mega Evolution itself. And there we have it, everybody. That was the dark side of Pokemon for you all to enjoy this Halloween season. Now, as much as I enjoy the fact that Pokemon is a family-friendly and kid-centric franchise, I also love the fact that Game Freak is not bashful at all about including some very dark themes in their games from time to time, because it really adds a very enjoyable and new wrinkle that you wouldn't expect into a family-friendly game like Pokemon. With all that being said though, if you guys enjoyed the video, please give it a like and let me know down in the comments below what your favorite dark part of Pokemon is, even if I didn't mention it in this video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for new Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And I just want to point out that this video was voted on by my patrons over at Patreon. If you would like to join Patreon and support the channel, it would be greatly appreciated, and it can get you perks like not only being able to vote on videos, but also being able to vote on videos early. I also just barely added a new tier to my Patreon, where if you decide to pledge at that tier, you will get a one-on-one Skype/Discord call with me every month, where we can talk one-on-one basically about whatever you want to talk about, whether it's Pokemon, whether it's YouTube, whether it's anything else. We can even do some Pokemon battles while we talk. Just basically, it would give me a chance to hang out with you guys, and it would greatly support me and support the channel, which allows me to bring videos to you guys like this every week. With all that being said though, I will be back on Tuesday for another video, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live. And with all that being said, I love you guys, of course, and I will smell you guys later.